Hi, Zizaran here with another video, and in this video I want to go over the recently asked questions. It's a FAQ and they have some good answers, and there were a lot of things the community was concerned about. So yeah, I wanna go over it in this video. Well, let's just crack into it. Dancing Dervish feels like it'll become mandatory on every build. Can we prevent this, please? So what was going to change there was that Dancing Dervish you'd basically get free rampage by swapping to your offhand, having a Dancing Dervish there, killing a few monsters, and then getting Rampage. And Rampage doesn't end as long as you're killing things. So it would just be a damage boost, a movement speed boost, and it would be really annoying to keep weapon swapping to do that. So even though like it is just power we're asking for to be removed, it's like annoying power. So we did lose that. Hoarfrost is an ailment? No. Regular debuff. It's the 2-second freeze from Warden's Oath of Winter affected by freeze duration modifiers. No. So it's always 2 seconds. It can't be longer, it can't be less. That's nice. Can't be less. Does gold scale with modifiers to quant? What about resources from the settlers? Gold is a regular item drop, so that means that party quant, etc. Will naturally cause you to find more gold, so everything will scale it. We don't really have sources of quant anymore except player quant and rolling quantity on the map. Mining resources, you do gain scale with item quantity in in-game maps, but at a reduced rate. Does Farshot's new damage bonus apply to all damage or only a subset? Damage with hits and ailments. It is now more clear. Oath of Spring, Winter, Summer work with mines, or hits required to be from weapons. Any damage aside from minions, including spells, totem traps, mines. However, Unbound Fury does require you to hit yourself and will not be generated by other things. So that's like the spell berserk thing. How does Valor work? How do we generate it? By default, you gain 1 Valor on melee kill or melee hit against rare or unique, up to max of 50, 2 per second. If you have 2 tinctures using Warden Experienced Herbalist passive, taking the Nature's Concoction, does he gain 2 charges or 4? Only 2, right. So we were hoping, or some people were hoping you could have a flask in the middle of 2 flasks to like, well, run it permanently. How will the new Vaal Pact work with Slayer Leech? So, with Vaal Pact, it is instant, right? So it doesn't. However, the overkill damage from Endless Hunger is assigned to the damage that killed the monster, so with Vaal Pact allocated, it'll be instant from melee kills and normal from other kills. It is worth noting that the Overkill Leech is a separate instance of Leech from the Hits Leech, which can be quite advantageous. However, none of the wild leeching stats on Endless Hunger function with Instant Leech. So I guess that does mean, at least for mapping, you will get both Overleech as well from all the overkill damage. So you will have Overkill Leech. That'll probably feel quite nice while mapping. However, for bossing, like sure, you could run the Worm Flask, which you do, but keeping that up all the time is quite hard, right? You're not going to keep it up all the time. Can you apply runesmithing enchants to unique weapons? So these are new super powerful enchants that we're getting, and no. And you cannot scour chance these into uniques either. Eternal Damnation feel a little OP with Relicash. Do you plan to change that? We're changing Eternal Damnation to cannot gain endurance charges, cannot gain power charges, to max endurance, frenzy, and power. So now actually frenzy got caught in the crossfire too. That wasn't even involved before. A little unfair. I think they kind of killed Eternal Damnation. I don't feel like this is an ideal solution. It might be a little overboard. Eternal Damnation and Relicash is a little OP. If you don't understand why, I can do a quick explanation. You could stack like 10 maximum endurance charges, and you get the crazy damage mitigation from Eternal Damnation. And even though it cannot gain, the way Relicash works is you don't gain them, you just have them. And then you could convert them to brutal charges with the Maven Belt, and then you could gain brutal charges. So it was going to be very strong. It was going to be used in most builds. And I'm not surprised they nerfed it, but I think they went overboard. Does the Taming count all 50 shocks with Warden Oath, giving up to 1,000 increased damage per ring? It would have. So if you guys didn't snitch, we would have perfectly good rings. Every time somebody was talking about it, I was like, psst. But here we are. It has been nerfed now, massively. They still look like it'll be decent rings, but like more of a softcore thing. Not something I'll use on hardcore probably, because now it's per type of ailment. Yeah, I mean it still will be substantial damage on a ring, so, but it won't be 1,000. What happens if you allocate both Perfect Agony and Elemental Overload? Basically nothing. Can't inflict ailments. Do sources of damage over time multiplier still apply when you have perfect agony? No. And what sources of crit multi work with perfect agony? Everything. It's very nice. How does aggravating bleeding work with multiple stacks of bleeding? This is an important one, and honestly, I am not 100% sure that I fully understood it after reading it 3 times, but I think I have a pretty good idea, and this is not exactly how we thought it would work. Being aggravated is a property of each individual bleeding debuff. That's bad. The way I initially thought it was going to work before this explanation was that aggravated would be a state of the monster for a period of time, let's say 4 seconds, right? I thought you would hit the target, it would be aggravated for 4 seconds, and all the bleeds would be aggravated. This is not the case. Stats that grant a chance to aggravate bleeding aggravate all bleeds on the target at once if they trigger, so other than the one that aggravates bleeding, older than 4 seconds. So that means that, with an exception, if I hit twice, and then on the third, the chance to aggravate works, the first 2 ones are aggravated, the third one is not. And then I hit 2 more times, then the next 3 bleeds are not bleeding, are aggravated. Annoying! The extra damage from aggravated bleeding is separate to the bleed's normal damage. So if you aggravate 100 DPS, it's taking 100 normal DPS, but 200 extra aggravated. If you inflict a normal 200 DPS bleed, then that'll take precedence over the normal damage from the smaller bleed, but the aggravated damage from the bleed will keep applying as it's the highest aggravated bleed damage. So, now, bleed doesn't really stack. Like, bleed doesn't stack the way ignites do, etc., and they have nothing like poison dust, unless you do Crimson Dance, but then they can't be aggravated anyway. So it is just about the highest hit. However, we are going to change some of our builds a little bit because of this, because if you aggravate bleeding on hit and inflict a bleed on the same hit, the new bleed will not be aggravated. You'd have to hit again to aggravate it. The Gladiator's Jagged technique is the only way to apply an aggravated bleed in a single hit. So, depending on the attack speed of the builds and stuff, some will be adjusted. If it's something that's hitting repeatedly and fast, like I might not need Jagged technique on a Gladiator, but for example on Earthquake, you will absolutely need it. So, we will be changing some things around because of this. So we do only have 1 stack of bleed, and with something with a reasonable attack speed, and on bosses, it'll probably be okay to like keep aggravating it, because bleed does last quite a while. But yeah, it's not the way I thought it would work. How exactly does Gladiator determine Survivor interact with the block chance on my shield? It doesn't. It completely overrides it. You have this node, you have 50% block on your shield, no matter what. Does Oath of Winter still require you to deal a certain amount of damage to inflict Horfrist? It has to do enough to try to inflict a 1 millisecond freeze, which is 1/6000th of a monster's life, so that looks very easy. Regret orbs still exist. Ores, bars, food, resources are not tradable. Rage on hit with multiple sources they'll stack together, so you could get 10 rage from a single hit. You don't have to only get 1. Deadeye Frenzy node works while using Flicker Strike. No. You it's the same as you can use standing still with Flicker. So no. What will happen to race rewards that have quant on them? You will not be able to remove them in leagues like the upcoming 325 league. They can only be removed in hardcore or standard. But very few people have these anyway. This is very, very non-issue. Is the Barksian skill on the Warden the same as it appeared? It is better. It has been buffed. I think it's been buffed at least. Reserves 10% of mana now. And minus 30 flat, 2%. It looks decent. It's substantial. Are all Affliction corpses being re-added? Yes, but with balance changes. Notably, a lot of the aura ones could provide are less powerful. That is interesting because that means that we are getting the dark marionettes back. And if you don't know how they work, if you have 2 or 3 dark marionettes and use Guardian's Blessing, you can basically reserve a permanent aura and they will just keep dying at different times and respawning. And if they all die at the same time, yeah, it's a little bit annoying, but it is basically a better Divine Blessing, so could be really interesting. Is there a maximum number of trades in the currency exchange? 10! That sounds very little. That sounds extremely little. I am shooketh. But I guess there will be instant, hopefully, if you're doing trading, right? So, do the maps your runners complete interact with your atlas at all? No. And I mean, I also expect that they will drop way less than we would. I'm not expecting crazy stuff from them. But either way, these are all the FAQs. I hope you enjoyed reading through them with me. Thank you so much for watching. I will be streaming on both YouTube and Twitch this coming week, so hopefully you'll tune in there if you like it. And either way, sub if you liked the video, but more importantly, try to die less than I do.